What's up, Tweeners? Welcome back to another Tweener tennis video today here on the channel. And today we have a very special guest, a very reoccurring guest, and hopefully will be on our channel many more times. David Kane, who writes for tennis.com, who writes for Tennis Magazine, and is our WTA insider. And I am very grateful to have him on after a wild weekend of Ostapenko. David wanted to come on our channel to talk about how Jelena Ostapenko is back in the winning circle and his finding her form as well. And I think that's going to be something that she actually even might make the top 10 this year. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to show your appreciation by hitting that like button. We're probably going to try to do these with David at least once a month, so that way you guys are informed about what's going on the women's tour, and maybe we'll do this with someone else for the men's tour as well. But make sure to show your appreciation by hitting that like button and making sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one. Now, enjoy our conversation with David Kane. Everyone knows who David is at this point. He is our go-to guy for the WTA. He is our number one for the inside scoop. And today he vigorously tweeted out to many people. I was a little offended that I wasn't the only one, but at the same time, I was very happy that he did reach out, because over the past weekend, Ostapenko made two finals, has won, well, two finals, I will say, one in singles, one in doubles, and split. She made the semifinals in St. Petersburg. She doesn't have a main sponsor, so she wears something on court, and then Nike and Adidas or whatever she wears. And she just captured her 5th WTA title, and she's only 24. How is she only 24, David?
I mean, I feel like she's been 19 for a while, and that was even before she won. By the time the French Open was over in 2017, she'd already turned 20. So I feel like things have been moving pretty quickly for her. But at the same time, she's still very young and doesn't look like she's aged a day since she won that first slam. So she's got that going for her, that's for sure.
I 100% agree. And tell us why, because I'm going to title this video The Case of Jelena Ostapenko instead of The Case of Benjamin Button, just because I want to see how well that goes. So tell me why you wanted to talk about Jelena Ostapenko, and not just her, but a lot of the Baltic players involved now after we saw Australia. Now, what are we looking at for the state of women's tennis?
And first of all, anyone who's followed me and read my work for the last 7 years knows that I have a soft spot for Jelena Ostapenko. She was one of the first players that I interviewed when I started working for the WTA, and then watching her make that Doha final in 2016 was super illuminating. I mean, the reason why I'm wearing this Anna Kournikova shirt, for anyone
great shirt, by the way,
watching, is aesthetically there is so much that Ostapenko and Kournikova have in common: that take back on the forehand and the backhand, the similar struggles on the serve in many instances. And so just seeing that sort of clean aesthetic technique was always what drew me in, and the drama and sort of the theatrics that comes along with an Ostapenko match was just icing on the cake for me. I was sold. And so starting the year with her, you know, sort of having been in limbo now for the last 2 or 3 seasons, really hasn't been the same in many respects since making that 2018 Wimbledon semifinal, and having as good a chance as anyone of those final 4 of winning that title could be a very different conversation. Watching her open against Krejcikova in the 3rd round of Australia, and just things seemed really at their lowest at first. I was thinking she doesn't look in phenomenal shape. She was having the sponsorship issues where she wasn't seemingly wearing what she was supposed to be wearing. And in spite of that, played a really credible match against Krejcikova, was up a set and a break, and goes to St. Petersburg and follows it up in the semifinals, and then wins Dubai. What's been most impressive to me is the fact that she's been serving phenomenally well. And it really goes to show that with as good of a ground game as she has, the serve's not amazing. We're not talking about a Pliskova level serve, even a Petra Kvitova serve, but it's gotten to a point where it is functional. And that has made such a difference in her game, serving in the mid 60s for mostly all of these matches in Dubai. And it has allowed her to really solve these top players and crush Veronika Kudermetova in the final. And going back to your question of why Ostapenko and why now, I feel like at the end of the Australian Open, when we last spoke, I was feeling a bit concerned about the state of the WTA. I felt like there was really no overarching narrative besides the fact that Ash Barty was the best in the world. It seemed like there was just total and utter doldrums south of the #1 ranking. And getting to watch St. Petersburg and watching that Kontaveit play a fantastic final against Maria Sakkari, and then Ostapenko win in Dubai, it feels like we're getting something of a narrative convergence where maybe it's Barty, and the Baltic girls. And maybe heading into Indian Wells and Miami, we'll really see that narrative come to fruition, because for the first time in a while after Australia, I really had nothing. So the fact that now there's a little bit of something gives me some hope heading into Doha at the end of the this spring swing, that maybe we have there's a season here, as Andy Cohen of the Real Housewives fame would say. We have a season. I didn't know if we had a season.
I don't get that reference because I don't watch the show, but thank you. I will put that in our SEO when people search this video. Put
it in the soundboard.
Yeah, there we go. Just add it. One thing that I wanted to point out, and this video will mainly focus on Ostapenko, but just in overall, we'll start with her. The fact that she beat Kenin, Swiatek, Kvitova, Halep, and then beat someone who won their first title of that level, Kudermetova, who won Charleston last year, I believe, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I should know that because I interviewed her there. But the fact that she was able to get through that lineup, and Kvitova is now finding her form at this tournament right now that she's playing, but these other girls that she beat, especially Halep when in that semifinal match, that was unbelievable. Like, how did she find that?
It's not even just the fact that she beat these players. It's sort of the way that she beat them, winning all these third set tie breaks against Swiatek and Kvitova in matches where, when you expect things to come down to close, tight margins, you wouldn't expect Ostapenko to be the one to close that out. You certainly would give the ups to an Iga Swiatek with her consistency with that topspin forehand, or even a Petra Kvitova with her wealth of experience and sort of just better, cooler demeanor in these scenarios. And even a Simona Halep, who's notoriously lost that French Open final to Ostapenko, but did beat her on hard courts later that season in Beijing. Halep has had a really great start to the season. I mean, things have taken quite a left turn since she played Ostapenko, lost to Garcia today in Doha, but otherwise
shocking.
Not a great one for Halep.
No.
That's a pause button. That's a hold button if you're playing buy sell hold with Simona.
Well, in my opinion, I think that's a really bad loss for her, at least.
Yeah, I mean, given the way Garcia's played since 2017, it's really the ghost of 2017 are coming all out of the woodwork.
And makes no sense.
Ostapenko and Garcia. It's strange because 2017 was such a strange year overall, looking back on that season. But to answer your question, yeah, it's just the fact that she is confident and is not playing with the sort of delusional self-confidence that maybe you expect of an Jelena Ostapenko, just believes herself to be better than everybody else and should be better than everybody else, is actually has some foundation behind it under her feet that is allowing her to really go for her shots and serve. And I think just ultimately it comes down to the serve, the fact that she can step to the line and not worry about hitting 9, 10, 11 double faults. We've seen what that's done to Arina Sabalenka's, mental state, to have that constantly on your head. How many double faults am I going to hit today? I mean, the fact that she's just getting that first serve in most instances, good enough to be able to hit a good +1 second shot. It's made all the difference. And again, is being able to shake off the mistakes, shake off rough sets, and come back and, steamroll Halep in the semifinal. That was crazy. And then the way that she was able to take it to Kudermetova in the final, who was in the midst of her own resurgence. I mean, Kudermetova is a player who for the last year has really struggled to beat players ranked above her. She was something like 3-18 heading into Dubai, starting to really tick away at that statistic this past week. And so even though the fact that she lost that final, she did win the doubles and gave credit to Ostapenko that she was pretty much unplayable in that final. And I think that's what we've always known about her, about Aljona, is the fact that she can play unbeatable tennis. It's just been a really long time since we've seen it, much less strung out over seemingly now, 7 out of her last 8 matches, notwithstanding the loss to Kontaveit in St. Petersburg. I mean, she's dangerous.
And with that win, I believe today she's won 8 of her 9 last matches, according to that, and kind of transitioning over to the other side. Besides Ostapenko, her opponent, Kudermetova, who actually beat her in the doubles final with Elise Mertens, which I thought was awesome from her to kind of have that resilience to beat someone like her again and to kind of mentally refocus. For her, that was her second singles final of the year. The first one came in Australia of the 2022 season. Kudermetova.
Did she? I don't even remember. I mean, it must have been one of those small.
Yeah, she already,
because
according to the WTA, she reached 2 singles finals in her first 4 tournaments of the 2022 season.
You are right. Yes, she made the Melbourne Somerset final, that featured a walkover over Naomi Osaka in the semis. And to get to the final, she beat Kuzmova, Madison Brangle, and Nastia Potapova. Not necessarily the giant killing run that would have stick out in my head. I mean, I'm still back at Charleston and Abu Dhabi because those runs were credible and they were really impressive. But
the field was better in those cases.
Significantly. Yeah.
And well, it's funny because she's also been one of the more consistent players on the WTA tour, because she's been in the top 50 every week since 2019, since September of 2019, which for me, she was always one of those that I always, after I interviewed her in Charleston, I kind of had that bias that you had with Ostapenko. After I interviewed her, she won the title. I'm like, okay, I could see her game getting a lot better and seeing her kind of make these incredible runs at week in, week out. But then she kind of dropped off a little bit. And then this year she kind of refound her form.
She's sort of an interesting contrast and foil to Ostapenko, because while Ostapenko, win or lose, puts together, unforgettable performances, there's something that's been pretty forgettable about Kudermetova over the years. I mean, like you said, top 50, but that kind of consistency has not translated to big, earth-shattering wins. She doesn't necessarily have huge, crazy weapons or hits the ball in a way that really makes you remember her. There's something very like CPU topspin character about Kudermetova, like just very consistent, very solid, no glaring weaknesses, but seemingly a mental block in a lot of these big matches. I mean, the fact that she was able to beat Muguruza in Dubai, and also, of course, it defaults to her doubles results, and then getting the win over I mean, even getting the win over Azarenka, quite frankly,
that was a good one.
That one together. I mean, the way that Azarenka's played the start of the season, and then to get a good win over Teichmann, who made the semifinals in Dubai, a comfortable court for her. Again, getting both of her finals this year have required a walkover in the semis. That's interesting, sort of emblematic of the Kudermetova problem.
Hey, Carlos Suarez Navarro had 3 walkovers at the Connecticut Open the last year that it had. So sometimes you need luck. So
Slam New Haven.
The Slam of New Haven. I love it.
R.I.P.
Don't remind me. There were 2 other, and everything you've been talking about, it kind of sparked more players into my mind. And there's 3. First one, Bencic. She lost to Towson fairly easily, in my opinion. And after that gold medal, I don't think she really has done anything, right?
Well, I think with Bencic, you go back to that U.S. Open quarterfinal against Emma Raducanu, a match that I fully expected her to walk away with, and was very much on even keel with Raducanu through the middle of that first set, 4-3. Raducanu starts ejecting a little bit extra pace, and Bencic doesn't have the answers and bows out pretty limply in that second set, and is dealing right now, according to her, with some long-term effects of COVID, which she caught at the end of 2021, was discussing a little bit in St. Petersburg, and then took the loss to Kontaveit in the quarterfinals of St. Petersburg. And then, takes the loss to Towson in Doha. I mean, good for her. The fact that she won that tough match against Kudermetova in St. Petersburg and then followed up against Kaya Juvan. But if she is having, if she's having, stamina issues, I mean, that's sort of her bread and butter. If she's not able to really rely on her physical fitness, that really throws a big wrench in her year. I mean, I guess the one thing that's going for her is that she's not actually defending those Olympic points because she didn't win anything from them in the first place. So she's not anticipating a tremendous ranking drop, but I think she really was looking for this to be the year that she returns to the top 10. Certainly a lot of opportunities between 11 and 13. And the watch for Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova has been going on for months, seemingly has come to an end because the way Ostapenko and Collins and Raducanu and Ons Jabeur all being sort of tightly packed in that 10 to 13 range, and then Muguruza being on the outside as well. That seems like that run is over for Nastia, unless she can really pull together a tremendous run in Indian Wells and or Miami. But going back to Bencic, it's a tough one because you really expected her to make that leap forward after making the 2019 US Open semifinal, winning Olympic gold. And now if she has the stamina issue, that's rough. That's going to really throw a dent in her season.
It's really going to, especially for like high hopes, you always have these players. And I wouldn't say it's to the level of Monica Puig when she won the gold, but no, it's not like that. That's what I wanted to kind of say, because that's a whole different level of dropping off the face of the earth. Oh yeah, it's true though. Like, you win gold medal and then you now she's a reporter for ESPN Deportes, and I don't know if she's ever going to come back, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, with Monica Puig, I mean, that was her dream in life to represent Puerto Rico and win that Olympic gold. I think if you asked her to trade in her career for, I don't know, maybe someone who maybe even Benchic's career at this point, I think she would rather have had her career having that magical moment, winning that gold medal, and and now potentially has a really good career shaped up as a broadcaster. Don't knock that broadcaster money. No, we saw Jen Brady at the Tennis Channel desk this week. She looked good.
Well, she knows what she's talking about, and she's been in those big scenarios too, and a Grand Slam finalist. So the other one was not Kontaveite, excuse me, Svitolina. Mm-hmm. Another first round kick. I wouldn't say another first round kick, but another disappointing. It feels like it though. Like. And this is only her second tournament after the Australian Open. And we touched upon it when she lost to Azarenka and how Azarenka played in that match. And you have to give her more credit to Azarenka than to Svitolina kind of crashing out of that. But have you noticed anything different that she's been doing lately in the last two tournaments?
I mean, I think Svitolina's in a position where she's kind of maybe felt like she's hit a wall. I mean, like, again, to talk about these young girls coming up against these more established players. If it's Bencic against Raducanu, there's Leylah Fernandez against Svitolina at the US Open. I think I mentioned this to you last time. I mean, my heart broke for Elina that she wasn't able to win that match. It seemed like it was really in her hands in that tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Doesn't have that extra gear. And that's been sort of emblematic of her career at major tournaments, just not having that extra oomph. I mean, even going back to the 2019 US Open semis against Serena. I mean, I really did think that Elina was going to make more of a match against that. The fact that Serena was able to really walk away with that as easily as she did.
Yeah.
A rough one. And I think you can only bang your head against the wall so many times. And then maybe before you start to feel a bit of futility. I mean, she's also happy, and perhaps hopefully you hope she's happy in her relationship with Gael. Gael has been able to really be inspired by this happiness in his life and play some really phenomenal tennis. I mean, obviously Monfils is a lot more of a natural talent than Svitolina. Svitolina's had to work a lot harder. And so maybe when you're that happy, maybe you're not working as hard, it's sort of that trade-off, whereas Gael can sort of feed on the emotional intensity of the success of that relationship, where Svitolina can't really do that. So I think, she's the kind of player who, if she's consistent, if she's feeling good, if she's feeling fit and consistent, she can string together some wins, but the more times you're getting those early hits, the tougher your draws get, the more your ranking falls. It becomes something of a death spiral. She's one of those players who I could see maybe considering starting a family and maybe leaving tour, maybe coming back after having a baby. I mean, the whole landscape of women's tennis has changed.
And I'm saying no to having a baby and coming back. There are only certain people that can do that, in my opinion, at least. Serena was the only one, and Clijsters and Azarenka. There's a couple out there that have done really well after having kids. I think Clijsters' third return to the tour was not maybe the brightest idea. And I think a lot of people can back me up. Even your reaction is telling me that you might agree with me, but
I mean, ostensibly it's still happening. So I mean,
is it? She just played Wozniacki in an exhibition.
Yeah. I mean, I totally forgot, but she played like 2 tournaments last fall after the US Open. She played Chicago and she played Indian Wells. You wouldn't remember because she lost both of those matches to Shea and Siniachkova, but she won a set in both of those matches. I mean,
okay. That's fair. I also think kind of with everyone going on, 2 more names. Badoza. We talked about her a little bit during the Australian Open recap. Moving forward, she still says that she has this shoulder kind of issue. And it was funny because I was on Game Phillips' podcast the other day, and they were telling me that they're worried about how Badoza is splitting her time with tennis and her kind of quote unquote modeling, I guess, now that she's becoming more popular. But I wouldn't say that. She's now 4 in the world. So it's not like that she's going to be that far out in terms. I definitely think she's going to make the WTA finals.
4 in the world, and with a really great shot of getting to number 2 as early as this week. I mean, there's 900 points on the line. If she wins Doha, bye-bye everybody. I mean, like that's, it's sort of, I mean, Krejcikova is in pole position to do it, but anybody pretty much, I think from 2 to 7 has a shot of getting up to number 2. If they win that title, it's how tightly packed that top 10 is. And it also goes to show sort of the flattening of the top 10. Badosa, my takeaway before the tournament was she was complaining about the conditions between Doha and Dubai, that they use different balls, that things are just a little bit different from Doha to Dubai. And that whereas in Australia, it was a consistent swing, consistent balls, consistent conditions allows you to play better. I don't know how much Badosa should be worried about that. She only played 1 match in Dubai. So it's not like she played like a million matches last week and now has to readjust. But in that sense, I'm worried that now she's going to have to play Clara Towson, who's a tough opponent. So, I mean, that's a little disconcerting because you feel like this is an opportunity for Badosa to really rack up some points. She's not going to rack up any in Indian Wells, although they won't fall off her ranking until September. You want her to, she has opportunities in the Middle East. You think she has Middle East opportunities in Miami, Rome. I mean, because she had really great results in Madrid, Roland Garros, Wimbledon,
even Charleston.
Yeah, Charleston as well. So making the semifinals. So I mean, there aren't a ton of openings for her, but if she can pull together a great run in the next couple of weeks, I mean, it seems like anybody's at this point. You could even see her potentially contesting for number 1 based on how Barty defends her points over the next couple of months. But I think, I haven't heard too much about her complaining about the shoulder, but I'm not worried about the modeling at all.
Okay. I don't think
most of those photos all were during the off season.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's not like it's sort of that, it's talk about the Anna Kournikova phenomenon that, you would do these things on your off time and they would come out during the season and give people the impression that your schedule is such that when you said modeling, I thought maybe her modeling boyfriend, but that seems to be something that's working out really well for her.
I didn't even know he was a model, but
I mean, you saw him, right? you saw his face.
Okay, fine. And the last person I wanted to kind of touch on was Raducanu. One, it's very early. It's like too early to call. But do you think one, she can defend her U.S. Open title, and 2, will she remain in the top 20 in the next? Well, is that permitted? Can she actually do that? I think,
she's defending so few points between now and Wimbledon.
That's what I mean.
She's
not going to drop that far, but I'm saying for her, she's still so young, but at the same time, I'm worried by the amount of attention that we're going to give her so quickly. And then this year is just not going to be able to repeat the same results.
Yeah. I mean, if you ask me today, if I thought she could defend her US Open title, I would say no, no, not at all. I mean, I think
that's the answer. That's the answer I was looking for. Go ahead.
It's rough for her because I think, no one on Team Raducanu was prepared for the US Open. They certainly weren't prepared in the immediate aftermath. They didn't get her a coach, in my opinion, fast enough. They had her play a lot of tournaments in the fall, which I don't think was
a great
beneficial. Idea. I think it just kind of exposed her and was an opportunity for, a lot of motivated, hungry girls to, take a crack at her. I mean, you saw what Marta Kostyuk was able to do to Raducanu in Cluj-Napoca. I mean, that was just a demolition of someone who just won a Grand Slam. And I think, I think she has a decent enough head on her shoulders. When she lost that match to Rybakina to start the season, she wasn't feeling that terrible about it. But I mean, it's only a month before she heads to Europe, and there's going to be a lot of British journalists asking her a lot of questions between now and Wimbledon, because that's the nature of the beast. There's a huge British press corps that's going to be following her every match, and they're going to be with her win or lose. That's something Joe Conta had to deal with. It's something obviously Andy Murray's had to deal with. It's if anything, it's worse for her in some senses than Leylah Fernandez, because Leylah Fernandez is not going to have 10 people from Canada in her press rooms over the next couple of months, but in all likelihood, Emma will. And so that's really every time she loses a match, it's going to be headline news. I wonder how many even went to Guadalajara, where she is top seed this week and will play her first match against Daria Gavrilova. I would imagine she gets through that one. Daria doesn't have the same weaponry.
No.
But I think she'll be okay there. And, the more matches that she can win, I think at least it was a smart decision to skip the Middle East and play here. I will say that for sure. I mean, that's an instance of smart scheduling on behalf of Raducanu. Why fly to the Middle East and potentially get Clara Towson in the first round? I mean, it's not worth it for her in her position. But, a lot of things went right for both Raducanu and Fernandez to make that US Open final. And the more that these players are out on tour and getting that exposure from first other opponents and also from the media, it just makes it that much harder. So it's hard to really bet on her right now, but still really great technique. That was my main takeaway from the US Open, is that it's just clean, pristine technique.
It's clean tennis.
Opposite from Fernandez. So you feel like the stronger that Raducanu gets, the more power she can inject. I feel like she is a long-term pick still, but in the short term, you just hope that she doesn't get destroyed in the short term. I mean, it's sort of that, short-term losses for long-term gains, but hopefully she doesn't get completely buried by what's to come, so that maybe in a couple of years we could say, wow, she really came out of that US Open surprise well. But in the short term, not too high of hopes.
Do you think Fernandez has that same kind of timeline?
No.
No, you can say it. I don't like.
I feel
honestly,
like I thought that Fernandez had an iron will. She was a tremendous competitor. She channeled the crowd phenomenally. Is not the sort of game that you look at and think this is someone who's going to really run the table and dominate. In many ways, it reminds me a bit of Bouchard in a different way, because I think they obviously were aiming to do different things, but technically they both had have limitations in their game, that the more times they're up against players, that's just another opportunity to figure out how to beat them. I mean, the fact that she lost to Inglis in Australia, I said it to you last time. I mean, that was probably like a textbook unforgivable sort of loss. No disrespect to Inglis, but it wasn't the kind of player it was like, oh, well, it's Carlos Suarez Navarro. It's someone who's has a lot of experience, or somebody who like this. That was just
someone that's a veteran on tour. Or
even just a young hotshot, like someone who were even a top seed. Like there was no mitigating that loss.
Well, there was no substance. There was no substance to defend her.
And no injury. I mean, at least with Raducanu, she was able to claim blisters when she lost to Kovanic. I mean, Kovanic is probably on that similar platform of sort of players to lose to when you're trying to prove yourself as a top ranked player right now. But it's if you're asking me to pick who has more long-term potential, I would still say Raducanu, but Raducanu has a significant number of mental hurdles to come through over the next couple of months, including having to defend that US Open title, including having to deal with the British press. All of that gives me pause. So
I agree. And to finish this off, and I'm probably going to have you on this channel a couple more times to talk WTA, because as our WTA, I'm going to call you our WTA insider, to be honest. And I
lowercase I. I don't want to get sued.
If you were to pick, and I'm looking at the live rankings right now, if you were to pick the end of the year top 10, I'm not even going to say 8 because that's even tougher. If you were to go top 10 right now, end of the year, and we'll update this, and I'll ask you every time you come on what you think, and it could change, it could stay the same, but right now, as we stand today, the 21st of, are we in February?
Yeah, for another 7 days.
Fantastic. Barty's number 1, Krejcikova, Sabalenka, Badoza, Pliskova, Kontaveit, Sakari, Swiatek, Muguruza, Collins. How would you
them?
No, I'm just saying, as of right now, that's what the ranking is. At the end of the year, who do you think? And it doesn't have to be in any particular order. Just give me the 10 players that are going to finish in the top 10.
It's funny because, like, looking at them, you feel like, well, most of them are playing just a little bit better than those ranked above them. So it feels like it's hard to bet against. Like, if anything, you'd be asking me like who wouldn't be? Because I would say probably the majority of these players, certainly based on where their points are probably going to be in the top 10 to the bitter end. I mean, you look at Kontaveit, Badosa, Muguruza.
Even Barty's basically in at this point, right? She has 7,000. Like, it's not even a contest. She's so far ahead of everyone that she's 980 points right now, according to Live Tennis Rankings. And then Krejcikova is 5,000. That's like numbers we were seeing with Serena when she was number 1, or even when the big 3 were dominating at their prime. Don't make that face. Don't. I know. I saw it.
I hate when they compare. I hate when she gets compared to Serena. It's so disrespectful. To
I
Serena.
know it's not.
I know what you mean though, but listen, like you said, even if she loses in the first round of Wimbledon, she's probably going to be still top 10 because she's won the Australian Open. I mean, that's pretty much wrapped her up, and she's not defending tremendous points at Roland Garros or US Open. She also didn't play Indian Wells last year, so that's points for her to potentially rack up in the spring. She played a fairly sparse schedule. I can't even remember if she played Canada because I know she won Cincinnati.
No, she didn't because she limited her schedule last year and the year before. I think 2020 she didn't play at all. 2021 she did, but only to a certain limitation. But I think if she didn't play at all, she'd still be top 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Pliskova, the fact that she's still injured and has not gotten back on court yet.
I was about to say the same thing.
She's perhaps least likely to continue being in the top 10. I think obviously Ostapenko has a tremendous opportunity now to break into the top 10. And I think she's racking up a lot of points at the start of the season where she might potentially be able to ride out that momentum. But I do think there is a lot. Yeah, it's just, I mean, looking at this top 20, I mean, it feels like it's funny. Everyone feels like they're ranked where they're supposed to be, even if they're all collectively not playing that well. It seems like that's what's so strange about it. So you don't really look at the rankings and think, oh, she's like so underranked. I mean, well, I would like to see where Azarenka can whether she could finally pull back up to the top 10, if she's going to have an opportunity to do it. It feels like sort of now or never for her. She's playing decent enough ball that you would think that maybe this is her opportunity to do it. Mm-hmm. And I think Coco Gauff wants to be top 10.
Well, the 5 after Collins, I think Jabeur has a decent shot of getting back into the top 10, in my opinion. Raducanu, it's really going to be interesting to see how well she does in the future. Again, the only thing she really has to defend is the US Open. Mm-hmm. Are you suffering from blisters too?
No, I got a hot mic hand. Yeah, no, I mean, looking at Jabeur, I feel like I still want to see a bit more results from her because she was so seemingly burnt out by the end of last season, but then that gives her a lot of opportunities to make up points in the fall. So she could be someone who makes that late push into the top 10 sort of under the wire. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with Danielle Collins backing up this big US Open run. Yeah. She has a lot of opportunities to rack up points now. And, it's a strain. It's a hard thing to predict.
I would say the way Ostapenko is playing right now, mm-hmm. she has a better chance than Svitolina,
correct,
Kerber. Yeah. I would say Pegula too.
Feels like Pegula has like a lot of points to defend. Like she played. How many times did she play Pliskova last year? Like I feel like and she's not on tour right now, so that's going to really 4. Like going to put a dent into her chances of going deep in a tournament.
Fernandez is losing a couple points here and there. Gauff is still in Doha. Like
Halep would have been a player that I would have thought, oh, she's definitely going to, make it back to the top 10 in a couple months. But now the last 2 weeks, it gives me pause. And she has a tremendous amount of opportunity to gain points. She didn't play Roland Garros or Wimbledon.
If she makes the quarterfinals,
didn't play a lot at all this summer.
If she makes quarterfinals of 2 out of the last 3 slams this year, she'll probably be inside the top 15. 100%.
Yeah, that's also part of it. It feels like the bar is so low right now to be in the top 10, or at least to be in the top 15.
Yes. Well, and it's not even necessarily, it's just, again, from the Australian Open, this is only the 4th tournament for the WTA Tour right now after Aussie.
Yeah.
And it's very spread out of where everyone is playing to. So I'd say for you to kind of put a perspective on the top 10, you would just leave it alone right now.
Yeah, I think right now, like I said, I think everyone's pretty much, with the exception of Ostapenko, who's trending up, and I would like to see how she does for the next couple of weeks. It feels like everyone is pretty much ranked where they're supposed to be based on how they played last year, especially now that potentially Krejcikova moves up to number 2, the way that she's been playing better over the last 6 months than Sabalenka. She makes more sense to me as a number 2 right now.
Yes.
Badosa being ranked above Pliskova makes sense. Kontaveit is perhaps a bit underranked based on how she finished the end of the season and has continued the start of this season.
She's
someone
5.
I could see. Yeah. She's my power rankings number 5. Swiatek and Sakkari have both played solidly enough to start the season. Muguruza is really the only one who's trending all the way down.
Okay.
So I think, if you were asking me to swap out probably Collins and Muguruza perhaps for Jabeur Ostapenko, fair. But this is, I think this is a question we really should revisit after
in like
either after Indian Wells or after Miami, because I feel like we're going to have
after both
data points. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I'll have you on after those to kind of update your power rankings, because the way I see it, the people that are probably going to drop from the top 10, depending on how Pliskova is going to do, I think Pliskova is going to drop. I think Collins is going to drop. I think Muguruza is going to drop. And I'm gonna just say, as of right now, it's gonna basically stay the same. You're gonna move all those people up, except for those three, and then put Ostapenko. Why is this so hard? Ostapenko, Goff.
Okay.
Rybakina just lost too. Shit.
Yeah.
And
and the thing I would say about Pliskova also is that I feel like her points are fairly backloaded as well, because she's got Rome final, Wimbledon final. But I think up to that point, it was sort of like dregs for her for the first couple of months. I mean, I was so happy to see her turn it around ahead of the US Open. So I feel like that for her, she has some time, and this is a decent enough time, if it's ever a decent time for anyone to be injured now. But also at the same time, this is prime real estate for her to potentially be racking up points on hard courts when she heads to clay, which is not necessarily her favorite, and Wimbledon is not necessarily her favorite either. I mean, she's never loved grass. The fact that she was able to pull together last year was a shock for herself as much as anybody else. But it's a weird. It's just this is what I've been saying. I just like the rankings are so weird. The whole state of the tour is just other than Ostapenko, she's really the only one who's trending up powerfully up, and you feel like, okay, this is like a big story. I mean, Barty can't go higher than 1. I think maybe if she was ranked lower at this point, we would feel there would be some upward momentum heading her way. But I think for her, she's just maintaining, and she's presiding over a very cuckoo, crazy, chaotic tour right now. And she does not seem like the appropriate face for such a crazy tour. It feels like Ostapenko is definitely the hero that we need in a time like this, because I don't know if calm, cool, collected Barty is prepared to deal with all of this crazy over the
we liked Ostapenko for just the emotion that she shows. And honestly, it's fun to see her kind of be, quote unquote, I wouldn't say a walking meme, but seeing that personality come out of her, which a lot of people love. And can you talk to me about Pavlyuchenkova again? Because that was going to be my third, to be honest with you. So would it be weird if I said she was in my top 10 by the end of the year, as of right now?
I mean, she'd have to make the top 10 in order to do that. And I feel like she's just been the story of her. She's very much at this point, could she be the best player to never make the top 10? I mean, I think that there's an argument based on her longevity and the amount of Grand Slam quarter, but now made a Grand Slam final. I think she could potentially be the best player to never make it. And she has had so many opportunities over the last couple of weeks of last year, at the start of this year, and it just hasn't come together. And right now she is 400 to 500 points behind Collins, and is about to defend Madrid points, is about to defend Roland Garros points.
Compared to, and she's younger than Kerber, who's 17. She's younger than Azarenka. And she's essentially the same age as Pliskova. Pliskova is about to turn 30 in a month, and only 2 years older than Muguruza. So it's not possible. No, I've always been fascinated by her because she's a fellow 91 baby. She's my age. And I've always wondered if she was just content to be number 14 in the world. And every time I've tried to kind of ask her about that, she's batted that back. And I said, no, I've always been working really hard. Just things haven't fallen into place, based on her mentality, based on sort of the way she conducts herself around tournaments and with other players. You feel like maybe she doesn't feel the same burning fire, perhaps, of an Azarenka, of a Kerber when they do lose matches. You feel like they're probably maybe more disappointed than Pavlyuchenkova. But she was able to pull it together and make the Roland Garros final, which I never in a million years thought that she would do, especially when she was up against Azarenka in Paris, and I think was trailing in that final set, turned it around and won it, and really was
outplaying Krejcikova until she injured herself towards the end of that second set. You wonder, that talk about a missed opportunity for everybody. I mean, Badosa could be a French Open champion right now if things went a different way. I mean, that's sort of one of those sliding doors, major tournaments that I feel like we'll be revisiting for years, because it was just so many players had a shot at that one. And I mean, especially when it started as really just sort of a presumptive run to the title for Swiatek. I mean, going into that tournament, it was looking to be sort of this Nadal narrative where how many French Opens in a row is she going to rack up? And she takes that loss to Sakkari, that turns around Sakkari's season, makes the first of 2 major slam semifinals. Sakkari is another player who I felt like has really hit a ceiling, but she made the finals in St. Petersburg, has been playing solid enough. I mean, I kind of thought she was going to be the one to drop like a rock to start the first few months of the year, because she seemed to be playing so much better than herself and was consistently running into the Raducanu loss that I saw coming in the semis, the narrow loss to Krejcikova and Roland Garros. You felt like she's someone who has that ceiling, because as athletic as she is, doesn't have the same weaponry of a Krejcikova, of even a Raducanu, when Raducanu was able to correct and reabsorb and redirect pace better than Sakkari was. Like when Sakkari went down, when Sakkari was beating Pliskova, I was like, well, she's not gonna be able to sustain this. And she was like brutalizing Pliskova. And I was like, but this isn't sustainable. And sure enough, I think she lost 5 of the first 6 games to Raducanu in the semis. It was just over. But it's a tough one for Pavlyuchenko because she's so talented. She's another phenomenal ball striker, a great conversation, a great person to chat with. Yeah, I think after Indian Wells, I think we're probably going to have a better sense, because you would think Barty shows up to that. And so that'll, with her in the mix, how she competes against your Kontavites and your Ostapenkos, sort of your power ranking number 2 and 3 right now, alongside Krejcikova. And you never know how Sabalenka is going to pull up. So, I mean, that'll really answer things, because I think heading after Australia, it was who can compete with Barty. And now we're maybe starting to see a couple of players come up. Now they actually have to compete with Barty, and that could be a whole other answer.
And I think Sabalenka is going to be an interesting one, to say the least, of who is going to be able to, if she's going to be able to stay within that. I think she's going to finish top 10, but it's whether or not she can stay inside the top 5 is my question.
Yes, I think that's a good pick, because she's one of those players who did make the WTA finals. So you feel like she has a bit of a buffer. Like there are some players who are just going to lose a ton of points at the end of the season, sort of the last week of the year. But I feel like Sabalenka stabilized a little bit, but then
but Australia happened, and I felt like shit hit the fan. Excuse my language, but that's, you kind of got to see, okay, there's some kind of block there. And for her to recover and get as far as she did with that kind of serving incident, I'm going to call it serve gate, whatever you like to call it in Australia. But I mean, please.
I think the problem with Sabalenka is it just feels like every time she fixes something, there's another problem. Like I think she finally figured out sort of the mental block at slams, and then the serve is not great. And then she kind of seemingly figured out the serve in Dubai and then got out hit by Kvitova. So like, it just sort of, it feels like every time it goes to show how important it is to have that versatility and variety of an Ash Barty, because there is a lot of different things she can do on the court right now, where Sabalenka, if one thing isn't working, it really, throws a wrench in her whole game.
And it's like, it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like she's taking it in stride, is trying to have a good sense of humor about it. Yeah. It's disappointing, because she's another one who's great to talk to, and I love watching her play. So hopefully she can turn it around. But I mean, she was one at the start of 2021. I thought she was my pick to win a major title when we spoke. So don't bet on my predictions, guys. It's clearly,
I'm just making power rankings for both of us to figure out.
I just like to hear myself talk.
That's why he came on this one, so that way you can talk forever. That's why I
invited myself onto this podcast.
That's why I tweeted at 5 different people and 1 responded.
I was like, which of you well-groomed eyebrow gentlemen will want to have me on your podcast? And you came through.
Thank you.
I knew if I threw the bat signal up, I knew one of you was going to come through for me.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And David, I really do appreciate you coming on, and hopefully we can have you more on this channel, because I feel like a lot of people need that kind of update. And I think this is going to be a very refreshing conversation, I think, after every major tournament, because I think the WTA is going to be nuts this year. I genuinely do. I genuinely do, especially now with Ostapenko kind of getting back into it. I'm just like, shit, this is going to happen.
I feel like the WTA right now is in a very weird, precarious state. And I feel like, not to toot my own horn, but I feel like fans would appreciate a bit of a guiding hand, sort of explain what's going on and sort of get a sense of the momentum and vibes, because it feels like this is not a typical year.
No,
like I feel like I've watched enough seasons of women's tennis to know that this is a little bit of a strange one. So I think the more we get some trending players, the more we get some consistent results, some streaky results, I feel like it'll kind of put things back into equilibrium, but right now it still feels a bit off. So hopefully by the next time we speak, I can have a bit more my feet on the ground here.
100%. And David, I really appreciate you coming on. It's always fun talking to you and listen to you talk about the WTA because and I'll show you something afterwards, but disregard that. But make sure to go check out David on Twitter. Make sure to go read his articles on tennis.com. Make sure you're following him. He does write paper too. It is in Tennis Magazine. I have read his stuff. It is fun to read. Make sure to go check him out and make sure you're subscribed. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, guys.
You didn't do your signature thing.
Oh, the